Let us travel back in time, to the quiet, snow-laden streets of 14th-century Novgorod. The air is crisp, the night sky vast and glittering with stars, and the world moves at the measured pace of candlelight and hearth fire. This is a city of wood and wool, of whispered prayers, and the steady rhythm of daily life. There are no grand battles here tonight, no sweeping tales of kings and conquests, only the soft crunch of snow underfoot, the murmur of a family gathered around the fire, and the gentle hum of a city at rest beneath the winter moon. The setting: Novgorod in winter. Novgorod, one of medieval Russia's most prosperous cities, sits nestled along the Volkhov River, its wooden walls and towers dusted with snow. By the 14th century, it is a bustling trade hub, part of the Hanseatic League, where furs, wax, honey and amber pass through its markets. But tonight, we are not in the busy trading squares or the grand courtyards of the boyars. Instead, we wander the quieter streets, where the glow of hearth fires seeps through shuttered windows, and the scent of pine resin and baking bread lingers in the cold air. The winter night is long here, the sun setting early and rising late. The people of Novgorod have adapted, their lives shaped by the seasons, their routines guided by the rhythms of cold and dark. Homes in winter. Warmth against the cold. Most of Novgorod's houses are built of thick pine logs, their walls tightly fitted to keep out the biting wind. The roofs slope gently, heavy with snow, their edges lined with icicles that glint in the starlight. Inside, the main room is dominated by a large brick or clay oven, pech, its heat radiating slowly, the heart of the home. Around it, the family gathers. The floor is of packed earth, covered in woven rushes or woolen rugs. Benches line the walls, doubling as beds at night, piled with furs and woolen blankets. Near the oven, a pot of stew simmers, perhaps cabbage and barley, enriched with a bit of salted fish or dried meat. The scent mingles with the earthy smell of damp wool and the faint, smoky tang of burning birch wood. A single oil lamp or a tallow candle flickers on the table, casting long shadows. Its light is meager, but precious, enough to see by, enough to mend a torn mitten or carve a wooden spoon before sleep takes over. Clothing for the cold outside, the cold is relentless, and so the people of Novgorod dress in layers. Men and women alike wear long linen shirts, topped with woolen tunics. Over these, they pull on heavy svita, thick, knee-length coats of felted wool, sometimes lined with fur. Mittens, knitted or sewn from leather, keep fingers from stiffening in the frost. On their feet, they wear lapti, simple shoes woven from birch bark. But in winter, these are often swapped for valenki, felted boots stuffed with straw for extra warmth. Hoods or fur-lined hats shield their heads, and scarves of wool or linen are wrapped snugly around necks and faces when the wind bites hardest. A quiet night's work. As the evening deepens, some still work by the dim light. A woman spins wool into thread, the spindle whirling rhythmically between her fingers. A man repairs a fishing net, his hands moving with practiced ease. A child, bundled in a sheepskin, dozes against the oven, lulled by the murmur of adult voices and the steady crackle of the fire. Outside, the occasional bark of a dog or the distant creak of a cartwheel breaks the stillness. The snow muffles all else, wrapping the city in a hushed, dreamlike quiet. And so, the night stretches on, peaceful and slow. The stars turn above Novgorod, the snow keeps falling, and the city sleeps beneath its blanket of winter. In the next part, we will step into the morning, when the first light touches the frost-covered roofs, and the people of Novgorod begin their day. The first light of dawn is slow to arrive in Novgorod's winter. The sky, still heavy with night, begins to pale at the edges, a faint glow seeping through the clouds, casting the snow in shades of blue and silver. Inside the homes, the last embers of the night's fire still cling to warmth, and soon the first stirrings of morning begin. Waking to the cold. The air inside the house is chilly now, the great oven's heat having faded overnight. The first to rise, perhaps the mother or an elder daughter, blows gently on the coals, feeding them dry kindling until flames lick upward once more. The fire's light is the first true brightness of the day, pushing back the shadows as it grows. Others begin to stir, rolling from their beds of straw or wool-stuffed mattresses, their breath visible in the crisp air. Hands rub sleep from eyes, and woolen wraps are pulled tighter against the morning's bite. Breaking the night's fast breakfast is simple, meant to warm and sustain. A pot of kasha, porridge made from barley or rye, simmers over the fire, sometimes sweetened with a trickle of honey or enriched with a lump of butter. A clay jug holds kvass, the lightly fermented drink made from bread, its tangy warmth a small comfort against the cold. Some households might have a bit of dried fish or a slice of salo, salt-cured pork fat, to add richness to the meal. Bread, baked days before, is softened near the fire, its crust chewy, its center still dense and hearty. The family eats in quiet contentment. The only sounds the scrape of wooden bowls and the occasional murmur of plans for the day ahead. First tasks of the day. With the fire now strong, water must be fetched. A teenage boy or servant shoulders a yoke, 2 wooden buckets hanging from its ends, and steps out into the cold. The well is not far, but the path is slick with ice, and each step is careful. The well's wooden cover is lifted, the bucket lowered with a splash, then drawn up again, dripping and heavy. The water, fresh from the earth, has not frozen yet. By midday, a skin of ice may form, needing to be broken again. Meanwhile, inside, the women inspect the day's chores. Wool must be carded, flax spun, or perhaps a batch of dough set to rise near the oven's warmth. A pot of soup is started, onions, turnips, and maybe a bit of salted meat, left to simmer slowly for the midday meal. The city awakens. Outside, the streets begin to show signs of life. Smoke rises from chimneys, curling into the still morning air. A neighbor calls out a greeting, his voice sharp in the cold. A dog trots by, nose to the ground, searching for scraps. Near the marketplace, the first stalls are being set up. A fur trader shakes snow from his pelts, arranging them for display. A baker's apprentice carries a tray of steaming loaves, the scent of warm bread cutting through the frosty air. But most of Novgorod still moves slowly, the winter morning a time for steady, unhurried work. And so, the day begins, not with haste, but with quiet purpose. The people of Novgorod move through their morning routines with practiced ease, each task a small ritual against the cold. In the next part, we will follow the craftsmen and women of the city as their hands shape wood, wool, and metal into the things that make life possible. In the quiet hours of a Novgorod winter, when the world outside is hushed under snow, the city's craftsmen bend to their work. Hands, roughened by cold and labor, move with patient skill, shaping wood, twisting fiber, mending metal. These are the small, steady acts that keep life turning, even in the deepest cold. The woodworker's bench. In a small smoke-darkened workshop, a carpenter sits by a low fire, its light flickering across the tools hung neatly on the wall. His hands, wrapped in fingerless gloves, guide a curved knife along a block of pine, slowly coaxing out the shape of a spoon. The wood is fresh, still slightly green, and the blade slices through it with a soft, wet sound. Around him, the shavings curl and fall, piling like pale ribbons at his feet. Nearby, a half-finished bowl sits drying, its surface already smoothed with pumice stone. When finished, it will be rubbed with linseed oil, making it watertight for porridge or soup. Wood is life in Novgorod. Houses, tools, sledges, and even the intricate locks that secure doors against the winter night. Each piece is shaped with care, for waste is unthinkable in a land where every tree must be felled by hand and hauled through snow. The weaver's hands. In another home, a woman sits at her loom, the warp threads stretched taut before her. Her shuttle, loaded with spun wool, clicks back and forth, each pass tightening the weave. The cloth growing beneath her fingers is thick and warm, destined to become a winter cloak or a child's mittens. Beside her, a basket holds skeins of yarn, some dyed deep blue with woad, others left in the natural creams and browns of sheep's wool. Spinning and weaving are winter work, tasks that fill the long nights when fields lie fallow under snow. Her fingers know the rhythm without thought, the way her grandmother's fingers knew it, and her great-grandmother's before that. The blacksmith's forge. Outside the city walls, where the wind bites hardest, the blacksmith's forge glows like a tiny sun. The smith, wrapped in a leather apron singed with old burns, pumps the bellows until the coals roar. A length of iron lies in the heart of the fire, turning first red, then orange, then a searing yellow-white. When the metal is ready, he lifts it with tongs and lays it on the anvil. His hammer falls in steady, ringing blows, each strike shaping the glowing iron into a nail, a hinge, or perhaps a knife blade. The heat of the forge is a luxury in winter, and apprentices huddle near it when they can, their faces smudged with soot. Metal is precious here, often reforged from broken tools or traded for at great cost. Every piece must serve. The potter's wheel, near the river, where the clay is good. A potter turns his wheel by hand, the wet slurry spinning beneath his palms. He presses inward, guiding the shape as it rises. A cooking pot, wide and sturdy, its sides thick enough to hold heat. Later, it will be set by the kiln to dry, then fired until it rings like a bell when tapped. Pottery is humble, but essential. Without it, there are no vessels for milk, no crocks to store pickled cabbage or fermented turnips through the winter. Each piece is simple, unglazed, made to last. A city of makers. These are not grand artisans crafting treasures for princes. These are hands that make the ordinary things, the spoons, the nails, the pots and cloaks, that hold life together. Their work is slow, methodical, shaped by seasons and necessity. And as the pale winter sun climbs higher, their quiet labor continues, the rhythm of their tools a kind of music, steady as a heartbeat beneath the snow. And so the craftsmen work, their hands never still, even in winter's grip. In the next part, we will step into the marketplace, where these goods are traded, and where the people of Novgorod gather, their breath curling in the cold air as they barter and talk. The heart of winter does not still the life of Novgorod's marketplace. Though the air is sharp and fingers stiffen under woolen wraps, the square remains a slow, steady pulse of trade and talk. Here, where the snow is trodden into hard-packed paths, the people gather, not in haste, but with the deliberate pace of those who know cold cannot be rushed. A market wrapped in winter. The marketplace sits near the Volkhov River, its wooden stalls dusted with snow that has been swept from countertops but lingers in corners. Vendors huddle in thick svita coats, their wares displayed on rough-hewn tables or spread across cured hides laid upon the ground. Breath hangs visible in the air as they call out to passers-by, not with the loud cries of summer sellers, but with low, inviting tones meant to draw the curious closer. A woman adjusts a stack of wooden bowls, their surfaces smoothed to a warm gleam. Beside her, a basket holds bundles of dried herbs, thyme, mint, and the sharp, cleansing scent of juniper, tied with strips of bark. Across the way, a fur trader shakes out a wolf pelt, its thick winter coat rippling in the pale sunlight. The barter of necessities. Money exists here, silver coins stamped with the marks of princes, but much is traded in kind. A fisherman, his beard crusted with frost, offers smoked bream and pike in exchange for a new iron hook or a length of woolen cloth. A farmer's wife, her cheeks red beneath her woven headscarf, lays out wheels of hard cheese, their rinds rubbed with ash to keep them through the cold months. She bargains patiently for a clay jug, or perhaps a pair of leather shoes for her youngest. Nearby, a boy watches over a cage of live hares, their fur fluffed against the chill. They are lean now, but their meat will flavor a pot of broth, their skins stretched and dried for mittens. His eyes flick between potential buyers, weighing their interest. The tools of survival. At the edge of the square, a stall displays the winter's most vital goods. Axes with freshly hafted handles, their blades honed sharp for splitting firewood. Bone needles and balls of linen thread for mending torn clothes. Candles of tallow, their wicks of twisted hemp. A man runs a thumb along the edge of a knife, testing it, before nodding to the smith and handing over a bundle of squirrel pelts in payment. Elsewhere, a cooper fits hoops around a barrel's staves, his mallet tapping in a steady rhythm. Barrels are precious. They store grain, salt meat, pickled vegetables, and a well-made one will last decades. Food for the cold months. A baker tends to his stall, where loaves of dark rye bread are stacked like cordwood. They are dense, chewy, meant to last. Some are studded with dried mushrooms or wild onions for flavor. Next to him, a honey seller dips a wooden paddle into a pot of golden comb, letting the thick syrup drip slowly back into the jar. Honey is wealth here, preserver of fruit, sweetener of porridge, base for fermented medavuka. A grandmother ladles steaming spetten from a copper kettle, a drink of honey, herbs, and spices, heated with a hot iron from the fire. Those who pause to buy a cup cradle it in their hands, letting the warmth seep into their fingers before sipping. The quiet commerce of winter. There is no shouting here, no jostling crowds. The market moves at winter's pace, deliberate, unhurried. Conversations linger. News is exchanged along with goods. A man might mention that the ice on the river is thick enough for travel now, or that a shipment of Baltic amber is expected once the snows ease. By midday, the square begins to thin. The cold grows keener as the sun dips, and vendors pack unsold goods into sledges or shoulder sacks. Coins and traded items are tucked into belts or hidden pouches. The people of Novgorod disperse, back to warm hearths and waiting chores, their purchases secured for another week. And so the market empties, its business done for the day. The snow will soon cover the footprints left behind until next week, when the people gather again. In the next part, we will step into the gentle world of winter food. The simmering pots, the fermented stores, the simple meals that sustain life through the long cold. In the depths of winter, when the world outside is brittle with frost, the true warmth of Novgorod is found in its kitchens. Here, in the glow of the hearth, meals are prepared not with haste, but with slow care, each ingredient a small defiance against the cold. This is the season of simmering pots, of fermented stores, of bread baked dark and dense to last through the lean months. The hearth, heart of the home. The great brick oven dominates the room, its embers banked low but never allowed to die. By day, it radiates heat. By night, it is covered with ashes to preserve its warmth until morning. Now, in the late afternoon, a cast-iron pot hangs over the flames. Its contents, a thick stew of barley, onions, and dried mushrooms, letting out the occasional lazy bubble. A woman stirs it with a wooden spoon, then lifts the lid of a nearby crock to check the pickled cabbage inside. The tang of fermentation rises, sharp and bright. These are the scents of winter, earthy, sour, hearty. The pantry's bounty. In a corner of the house, shelves hold the summer's labor preserved. Jars of honey, their surfaces crystallized with time, sit beside crocks of fermented turnips and beets. Strings of dried apples and pears hang from the rafters, their sweetness concentrated by months of waiting. A sack of rye flour, tightly woven to keep out mice, leans against a barrel of salted fish, perhaps pike or bream from the Volkhov. These are not luxuries, but necessities. Winter is long and fresh food scarce. Every bite must be planned, every scrap used. A simple meal, the family gathers as the stew is ladled into wooden bowls. It is thick, almost porridge-like, enriched with a dollop of sour cream or a shred of salted pork fat, if the household is fortunate. Dark rye bread, baked weeks ago and hardened with time, is softened in the broth before eating. A smaller pot holds kissel, a gelatinous drink made from fermented oats, sweetened with a drizzle of honey. It is sipped warm, its mild tang a counterpoint to the stew's richness. There is no waste here. Bones are saved for broth. Vegetable peels go to the chickens or the family's single pig, kept in a pen behind the house. Even the crumbs at the bottom of the bread sack are soaked in milk for a child's supper. Festive foods. Though most meals are humble, winter brings moments of indulgence. On feast days, a wealthy household might serve pierogi, small dumplings stuffed with curd cheese or mushrooms, or a roasted hare basted with melted butter. Medovuka, the honey-based mead, is sipped sparingly, its warmth spreading through the body like sunlight. Even in poorer homes, a handful of dried berries or a spoonful of jam, saved from summer's abundance, might appear on a particularly cold night. A fleeting taste of sweetness in the dark. The ritual of tea. Though tea will not reach Novgorod for centuries, its place is filled by vzvar, a hot infusion of dried fruits and herbs, steeped in a clay pot by the fire. Apples, cherries, and rose hips lend their flavors, along with sprigs of mint or thyme. It is drunk slowly, the steam warming faces as much as the liquid warms hands. In wealthier homes, imported spices like cloves or cinnamon might appear, a rare luxury traded from distant lands. But for most, vzvar is simple, soothing, a small comfort in the long night. The silence. After eating the meal finished, the family lingers by the hearth. Bowls are scraped clean, then wiped with a piece of bread to catch the last traces of broth. The fire crackles. The room is heavy with warmth and contentment. Outside, the wind murmurs against the walls. But here, for now, there is fullness and rest. And so the meal ends, as all meals must. But its warmth lingers, in the body, in the hearth, in the quiet satisfaction of hunger kept at bay. In the next part, we will step into the evening, when the fire burns low, and the people of Novgorod prepare for sleep beneath their blankets of wool and fur. As the last indigo light fades from the snow outside, Novgorod's homes turn inward. The great oven's glow is now the only brightness, painting the walls in flickering amber. Hands move through familiar motions, banking the fire, smoothing blankets, murmuring evening prayers. This is the hour when the world grows quiet, when the cold beyond the walls makes the warmth within all the more precious. The last light of day, the setting sun does not so much disappear as surrender gradually to the winter dark. By late afternoon, the last grayish light slants through the tiny ice-veined windows, throwing elongated rectangles across the packed earth floor. A woman lights a rush dip, a reed soaked in tallow, its meager flame barely pushing back the shadows. In wealthier homes, a beeswax candle might burn for an hour, its honeyed scent mixing with wood smoke. Children are called inside from their last moments of play, their mittens damp with snow, their cheeks flushed. The heavy wooden door is barred against the night, its iron latch falling into place with a final sounding thud. Preparing for rest bedding is unrolled from its daytime storage near the oven. Straw-stuffed mattresses are laid on benches or plank beds, covered with woolen blankets and the occasional bearskin for those lucky enough to own one. In poorer homes, families sleep side by side like nesting birds, sharing body heat beneath layered furs. A grandmother carefully unwinds her headscarf, shaking out the day's accumulated wood smoke from its folds. A man removes his leather belt with its dangling tools, knife, fire steel, purse, hanging it within easy reach should the night demand action. Felted slippers are placed near the oven's residual heat, ready for cold morning feet. Final tasks by firelight. Not all work ceases with darkness. An old man carves a wooden spindle by the dim light, his knife peeling away long curls of birch. A woman quietly cards wool for tomorrow's spinning. The rhythmic scrape of the paddles, a soothing counterpoint to the wind outside. These are not chores of urgency, but of habit, hands keeping busy as the mind unwinds. Near the oven, a pot of water steams gently, infused with pine needles or chamomile. A cloth is dipped and wrung out, passed from person to person for the evening's brief washing. Face, hands, the back of the neck. The warmth is a small luxury, the steam carrying away the day's grime. Stories and silence. In some homes, a low voice recounts familiar tales, perhaps of the domovoi, the household spirit, who must be appeased with crumbs left by the oven. Or maybe an old Viking saga, passed down through generations, its heroes and monsters made grander with each retelling. More often, though, there is only comfortable quiet, broken occasionally by the settling of logs in the oven or the sigh of someone drifting to sleep. A mother hums a lullaby, the same one her own mother sang, its melody rising and falling like a snowdrift shaping itself in the wind. The children's eyelids grow heavy, their breathing deepens. The watchful night. Though most sleep, someone always remains half awake, listening for the cough of livestock in the attached stable, the telltale scritch of mice in the thatch, or the ominous crackle that might signal embers escaping the oven. In wealthier homes, a servant takes turns keeping watch. In simpler dwellings, it's the lightest sleeper who stirs at every unfamiliar sound. Outside, the cold tightens its grip. Frost creeps across the window ledges, forming delicate feathers of ice. The stars wheel overhead, brilliant and indifferent. But inside, beneath the layers of wool and fur, hearts beat steadily, breath rises and falls, and the great oven's warmth lingers like a held hand in the dark. And so Novgorod sleeps, wrapped in winter's embrace. The fire burns low, the house creaks softly, and dreams rise like smoke through the rafters. In the next part, we will step beyond the home into the frozen beauty of the winter forests that surround the city, where trappers, woodcutters, and the wild creatures of the north endure the cold in their own ways. Beyond Novgorod's wooden walls, where the smoke of hearth fires thins and disappears, the winter forest stretches vast and silent. Here, the cold is not something to be kept at bay. It is the very air itself, the breath of the land. Yet life persists. Creatures move unseen beneath the snow. Trees stand patient in their frozen coats. And the few humans who venture here do so with reverence, taking only what they need, leaving only footprints that the next snowfall will erase. A world of white and shadow. The forest is different in winter. Summer's tangled undergrowth now lies buried beneath snow so deep that a grown man might sink to his waist if he strays from the packed trails. Birch trees stand like pale sentinels, their black markings stark against the snow. Pines and spruces bow under the weight of accumulated snow, their branches forming sheltered caves where animals huddle. The light here is diffuse, reflected 1,000 times between ground and sky, until shadows turn blue at their edges. On overcast days, the world becomes monotone. No horizon, no sky, only white upon white upon white. Only the occasional scarlet splash of rowan berries, still clinging to their branches, breaks the stillness. Those who work in the cold. Here and there, human signs appear. A trapper moves silently on wooden skis, his fur-lined hood framing a face reddened by cold. He checks his snares, carefully placed loops of sinew, finding one holding a snow hare, its body already stiff. The man murmurs thanks to the forest before tucking the creature into his sack. The pelt will line a child's mittens. The meat will flavor a pot of broth. Elsewhere, a woodcutter's axe bites into a dead pine. The sound echoes strangely in the muffled air. This wood is too green for burning, but it will be stacked and dried for next winter. For now, he loads his sled with the deadfall that litters the forest floor. Nature's kindling. The unseen life beneath the snow. A hidden world thrives. Voles and shrews tunnel through the subnivean layer, where the Earth's residual warmth keeps the temperature just above freezing. Their tiny claws scratch against frozen grass as they nibble stored seeds. A fox pauses, one paw lifted, listening for these sounds. Suddenly it leaps, plunging muzzle first into the snow in a spray of powder. For a moment it flails, then emerges triumphant, a vole clamped in its jaws. The meal is quick. The red fur disappears again into the trees. High above, a goshakon perches motionless on a branch, its feathers fluffed against the cold. It watches for movement below, yellow eyes unblinking. The forest's gifts. Even in winter, the forest provides. A woman carefully strips bark from a young birch, only the outer layer, leaving the tree alive. Boiled and pounded, this bark will become cordage, or the waterproof lining of a food pouch. A hunter follows the faint tracks of a capercaillie, the large grouse that feeds on pine needles. His bow is strung, but he moves slowly, knowing the birds will sit motionless in the trees until nearly stepped upon. And always, there is firewood to gather, dry branches, resinous pine knots that will burn hot and bright. Each armload is a promise of future warmth. The dusk return. As the light begins to fade, the trapper turns back toward Novgorod, his skis whispering through the snow. The woodcutter's sled creaks under its load. They follow their own footprints back, already softened by fresh snowfall, like the forest is gently erasing their passage. Behind them, shadows lengthen between the trees. A wolf howls, its voice carrying impossibly far in the cold air. Somewhere, a branch releases its burden of snow with a soft whump. The forest exhales, settling into another long night. The winter forest keeps its secrets well. Those who enter do so as guests, never masters. And as night falls, Novgorod's lights appear in the distance, tiny flickers of warmth calling its people home. In the next part, we will step into the spiritual world of winter, where old beliefs and new faith intertwine like vines beneath the snow. In the heart of winter, when nights stretch long and the air crackles with cold, the people of Novgorod feel the presence of the unseen. The old gods linger in the creak of trees. The new faith burns steady in lamplit chapels. This is a time when stories hold more weight than daylight, when every shadow might be more than it seems, and the line between prayer and protection grows thin. The domovoy's domain. In the dark corner behind the oven, where the heat lingers longest and the shadows pool deepest, the domovoy makes its home. No one sees the household spirit, but evidence of its presence is everywhere. The milk that sours unexpectedly, the broom left askew by the door, the warmth that stubbornly clings to embers that should have died hours ago. Before sleep, a woman crumbs a bit of black bread onto the oven's ledge, murmuring, "Here, grandfather, eat and be kind to us." In the morning, if the crumbs are gone, it means the domovoy is content. If not, extra care must be taken. A knife left point down in the floorboard cracks to ward off mischief. A red thread tied around a child's wrist for protection. Church bells in the cold. The sound of Orthodox Christian bells rolls over Novgorod's snow-laden rooftops, their bronze voices thickened by the frozen air. Families wrap themselves in their warmest woolens and shuffle toward the whitewashed churches, their breath pluming before them. Inside, the air smells of beeswax candles and incense, the walls alive with flickering icon light. A woman kisses the gilded edge of a Theotokos icon, her lips meeting cold metal. A man lights a taper before Saint Blaise, protector of flocks, whispering a prayer for his 2 goats surviving the winter in their lean-to. The priests chant in sonorous church Slavonic, the words rising like smoke toward the painted heavens above. Yet even here, traces of the old ways persist. The green fir boughs laid by the doorways for Christmas smell of forests, older than any church. The honey cakes shaped like horses, and birds recall offerings once left for pagan spirits. Faith here is layered, like snow upon snow. Winter omens and dreams. Dreams are heavier in winter, people say. A dream of a white horse means a marriage. Of a broken spindle, misfortune. A child born on the solstice is believed to carry second sight. Their eyelids are washed with snow at baptism to strengthen the gift. An old man examines the ice patterns on his window at dawn, reading them like holy text. See how the frost forms in ferns? That means the next storm will be mild. His granddaughter nods solemnly. though she secretly thinks it just looks pretty. At the crossroads outside town, offerings sometimes appear: a twist of wool tied to a birch branch, a clay bowl of porridge left on a stump. No one admits to placing them, but neither are they disturbed. Some things are best left between a person and whatever listens. The long night rituals. On the darkest evenings, when the wind howls like wolves at the gates, families perform small protective rites without fanfare. A pinch of salt is thrown over the left shoulder, where evil spirits are said to lurk. The threshold is swept inward after sunset, lest good fortune be swept away. A knife is placed under the bedding of a newborn, its edge turned toward the door. These are not grand ceremonies, but the quiet habits of people who know the world contains more than what eyes can see. The turning of the year. As winter deepens, the air begins to change. The sunlight, though still weak, lingers a few moments longer each day. In secret places, the first green tips of snowdrops push through the frozen earth, though they won't bloom for months yet. The people feel it too. A young girl notices the icicles dripping at noon, their musical plink-plink like a promise. An old fisherman, checking his nets under the river ice, swears the current feels different. The water remembers spring before we do, he tells his grandson. And so the winter's spiritual veil remains, thin enough to sense the unseen, but too thick to pierce. In the next part, we will witness the fragile beauty of winter's end, as Novgorod begins to stir from its frozen slumber. A change comes so gradually that at first no one dares name it. The morning air still bites, the nights still glitter with frost, but there is a new quality to the light, a hesitancy in the wind's voice. Winter is not over, not yet, but it has taken half a step backward, and in that small space, life begins to quicken. The weakening cold, the days grow subtly longer. Where once the sun barely cleared the treetops at noon, now it lingers a little, casting weak gold across the snow. Icicles along the southern eaves begin their slow surrender, dripping in rhythmic patterns onto the packed snow below. By afternoon, the surface of the snow develops a brittle crust, frozen again by night, but unmistakably softer than the iron-hard pack of midwinter. An old woman, stepping outside to empty a basin of wash water, pauses. She sniffs the air. There, beneath the evergreen scent of pine smoke, something earthy. Not spring, not yet, but the promise that winter is no longer invincible. The river's restlessness. Down by the Volkhov, the ice begins to speak. Where before it lay silent and thick, now it groans at night, great booming echoes rolling up from the frozen surface. Fishermen tapping new holes find the ice thinner than expected. Their augers break through with alarming ease. Boys dare each other to run across the thinning patches near the banks, laughing when dark water suddenly wells up around their boots. Their mothers scold them, but there is relief beneath the anger. The river's awakening means the fish will run soon, and the Lenten fast will be easier to bear. The forest's hidden signs. In the woods, the trapper notices changes. The snow no longer squeaks underfoot, but compresses with a wet sigh. Squirrels venture farther from their drays, their winter-gray coats beginning to dull. The first hardy crows return, their ragged black shapes stark against the snow. He finds a place where the sun has melted a patch of earth against a south-facing boulder. There, amid the dead leaves, a single green blade of grass pushes upward. So bright, it seems to glow. He doesn't pick it. Some miracles are best left growing. The city's slow, stirring Novgorod itself begins to shift. The woodpile by the north gate, once towering, now stands diminished. Woolen winter wraps are aired out, their smell of smoke and sweat loosened by the milder air. The first trading boats appear at the edges of the still frozen lake, their owners preparing for the spring thaw. In the marketplace, a new energy hums. A cooper repairs barrels in anticipation of the maple sap run. A cobbler stocks up on leather, knowing soon people will need new boots for muddy spring roads. And everywhere, the talk turns to planting. How early the peas might go in. Whether last year's rye stores will last until the first greens appear. The last winter tasks. There is still work to be done before spring. Ice must be harvested from the cleanest ponds and stored in straw-lined pits for summer. Fur-lined garments are carefully brushed and packed away with dried lavender. The last of the hard-frozen winter fish are smoked or salted for the lean weeks ahead. A sense of quiet urgency underlies these tasks. The knowledge that soon the snow will be gone. And with it, winter's peculiar stillness. A night between seasons. On one such evening, a family gathers around a hearth not quite as hot as it was a month ago. The stew contains the last of the stored turnips, their flavor dulled by months in the cellar. But there is fresh bread too, made from grain that had been saved for this very moment. A small celebration of winter's retreat. Outside, the world exists in transition. The western sky still holds the blue of winter twilight, but the eastern stars already glitter with the clarity of approaching spring. Somewhere in the distance, a snowdrop pushes through the half-frozen earth, its white petals tightly furled against the lingering chill. And so winter's grip loosens, finger by finger. The world holds its breath between seasons, balanced on the threshold of change. In our final part, we will witness Novgorod's gentle awakening, the first true day when winter surrenders to spring. There comes a morning, no different from the outside, no brighter or warmer than the one before it, when the people of Novgorod simply know. Winter has released them. The air smells of wet earth and rotting leaves instead of iron-cold nothingness. The snow retreats from the southern walls in ragged patches, exposing grass bleached white by months beneath the ice. Spring does not arrive with fanfare here, but with a slow exhalation, as if the land itself has been holding its breath. The breaking of the ice. At the river's edge, the ice has turned porous, a honeycomb of air pockets and meltwater. Children dare each other to stomp along the bank, shrieking when their boots punch through the rotten surface. Old men watch the current with practiced eyes, noting how the ice floes begin breaking apart mid-river first, their edges rounding as the water works at them. Then one morning, the Volkhov groans like a waking giant. Great slabs of ice crack and upend, jostling against each other with glassy clinks. The townspeople gather to watch the river run high and angry, carrying winter's broken pieces out toward Lake Ilmen. A woman tosses in a twist of last year's straw, an old offering to the water spirits. Whether Christian or pagan, everyone understands this moment. The world is moving again. The uncovering as the snow recedes, it reveals what winter hid. A lost mitten, frozen stiff, but now steaming gently in the sun. The skeleton of a deer, picked clean by scavengers. Early coltsfoot flowers pushing through the mud, their yellow faces turned toward the weak light. The city itself seems to emerge from hibernation. Shutters that have been closed against the cold for months are thrown open. Bedding is hauled outside to air. The first brave souls go bareheaded, though they still keep their woolen wraps close at hand. Spring in Novgorod is a fickle guest, prone to sudden reversals. The first true workmen wade into the icy shallows to repair fishing weirs damaged by the ice. Their breath still smokes in the morning air, but they work with sleeves rolled up, enjoying the unaccustomed freedom of movement. Women gather in yards to scrub winter's soot from woolens, their arms elbow-deep in tubs of meltwater. The smell of lye soap mixes with the earthier scent of damp wool drying on fences. And everywhere, the sound of scraping, shovels clearing winter's debris from gutters, knives scraping accumulated soot from candle holders, hose turning over the first thin layer of thawed earth in kitchen gardens. The market's reawakening. The marketplace transforms almost overnight. A farmer from the outskirts arrives with the season's first greens. Watercress gathered from icy streams, its leaves pungent and sharp. A tanner displays winter pelts one last time, before switching to lighter spring wares. The spice seller's stall smells overwhelmingly of dried mint and lovage, their green scents cutting through the residual winter mustiness. People linger longer than necessary, not just to trade, but to talk. After months of short, practical conversations huddled against the cold, words come more easily now. Laughter rings out where before there was only guarded murmuring. The animal's knowledge. The creatures sense the shift before humans do. Chickens, let out of their cramped winter coop, scratch at the bare patches of earth with renewed vigor. The household cat brings in the season's first vole. Depositing it proudly by the hearth, bees emerge from their hive in the churchyard, crawling sluggish and half-dazed across the first blooms. An old mare in the prince's stable begins shedding great tufts of winter coat, leaving hair clinging to every fence post she rubs against. The stable boys collect it to stuff into pillows. Nothing in Novgorod goes to waste, not even a horse's molting fur. A meal of renewal. For the first time in months, a family gathers around a table that holds something truly fresh. A salad of early sorrel leaves, their lemony bite cutting through the heaviness of winter food. A few precious morel mushrooms found in a south-facing grove. Fresh-caught pike, its flesh sweetened by the spring runoff. The bread is still last year's grain, the cheese still aged. But there is a sense of turning toward something new. Someone produces a small crock of preserved strawberries, saved since midsummer for this very moment. The taste is like sunshine remembered. Evening in the threshold. As dusk falls, the air carries something unprecedented. Warmth, not the oven's dry heat or the fleeting comfort of a sunny winter noon, but true, lingering warmth that seeps into bones. People sit outside their doors just to feel it, faces turned upward. The evening star appears not in a winter sky of hard, glittering clarity, but through a haze of rising moisture from the thawing earth. Somewhere, a woman begins singing an old song about the plow and the furrow. Others join in, their voices rusty from disuse, but growing stronger with each verse. Winter will return. It always does. But for now, the world is soft and alive and breathing. And so our year in Novgorod turns full circle. The snows will come again, the nights will lengthen, and the people will gather once more around their hearths. But for this moment, this fragile, golden moment, the world is made new. May your dreams carry you gently through the seasons as the starlight carries on through time unchanged.